Maybe you need to clean the glass before you install it on your radio. I know I'm going to clean this. Well, I want to tell you something. Do not, please, I beg you, do not clean this with a lot of water or solvents or glass cleaner or anything. What you want to do is what I do is I take a paper towel. I use Viva because it's most like cloth. All right, I take a paper towel and I just get it damp. All right, this is damp. It's not wet. And I very carefully, I hold it, the glass, and I just wipe one section at a time very quickly. You want to get in and out of that. Don't let it sit soaking in the water for a long time. One section at a time until you get the fingerprints and so forth off of your glass. All right. Never let this stuff sit on the numbers for long, because some of these numbers were painted, not all radios, but a lot of radios were painted with water-based paint. And that's true of a lot of Philcos. I've seen a lot of Philco dials that have been washed clean, including clean of all the numbers. So you want to very quickly, very gently take this stuff off. And then when you flip it over, see the paint, the numbers are silk screened on the back side of the glass. So the front side you can get as wet as you want as long as you don't get it on the back, because this isn't the side that the paint is on. So I can scrub it a little bit, and you know, of course this is the side too that's going to have the most dirt and fingerprints, so it's okay. You wipe it clean. If there are stubborn things that you can't get off, well, you know, you try, but don't use harsh cleaners, because that's when you risk taking that paint off. And maybe you learn to live with a little bit of character. Maybe some of this stuff is just character. Here's one spot here that is a little stubborn, but if I scrub it too much, I'm going to take off the bottom parts of these numbers. So I'm going to call that character and live with it. All right, there we go. Nice and clean. Now let me show you how this mounts onto the frame. Okay, this is the frame. First things first, let me set the glass aside for the moment. This frame was pretty rusty, pretty beat up. And so what I needed to do was refinish it. But the truth is I didn't really want to strip the whole thing. I didn't feel that was necessary, because it was just rust spots down here, a couple of them over here, and a couple over here. So I roughed it up, cleaned it up, shot a little bit of primer in those areas. You've seen me do that kind of thing before, so no need to go over it. And then I lightly sprayed it with a flat black paint, but I didn't just use any flat black paint. Here's what I found works the best on this kind of thing, because I like the texture it leaves and I like the level of flatness or lack of shine that it leaves. And I use this right here. I use a vinyl and fabric paint. Okay, this is basically paint, but it has an additive in it. It's called a flexing agent that enables it to flex a little bit, and also enables it maybe has a little more solvent in it than other paints, so that it can adhere a little better initially to the vinyl. And there's really otherwise it's just standard paint. But I like the texture it leaves, and because of the extra solvent, it lays out really nice, and it will run if you're not careful, but it lays out nice and smooth before it dries. I use this. They also have something called plastic bumper paint. It's the same stuff. All right, they have different names, but I've looked at them, smelled them. I haven't tasted them, but I'm pretty sure they're the same thing. Anyway, this works. This one here I actually painted with the last bit of vinyl bumper paint, or plastic bumper paint. Same thing. It worked out great, really great. I painted this backside with this stuff, and it looks the same. So this is what you get. You clean it up real well, wash it with soap and water, whatever you have to do. Don't sand it too hard with coarse sandpaper, because you'll see the scratches. This stuff is thin and it runs into things, and it doesn't really fill. All right, but it provides a nice background color to it. All right, let's put the glass on it now. On this frame, this tab mounts up on top of the radio right here, and then there's 4 holes that mount with screws in these 4 spots, and that's how you mount this on. Okay, to mount the glass onto it, I have some clips. Now I'm missing one of these clips, but 3 will work. These clips hold the glass onto this frame. So let's take the glass. Remember, this tab is at the top. This tab right here is at the top. So you want to make sure that this glass is oriented, and there are 4 little little pegs that are sticking up here that enable you to locate the glass. Set the glass between them. Since I only have 3 of the 4 clips, I'll put 2 of those clips down at the bottom, because that's, if the glass is going to drift, it's going to drift down. On the frame, there's a little raised section on the back of the frame right here. You can see that little raised section. All right, that clip is shaped so that this little part of the clip right up here, this raised section, fits right over that. Okay, so here it looks like a slot is cut into it. This slips right over it. There we go. Let's show you one more. There is the backside of that raised section. It looks like a slot here. There is the raised section there. The clip is shaped so that the little hump on the clip fits over that raised section. You slip it on there, and it clips right on. Okay? Piece of cake. Now this whole assembly here is going to sit right on the chassis like that. I've got to get the screws so I can screw it on, and then we're good to go. Looks good, doesn't it? The thing about this paint on the metal here, this rubber, this bumper paint, is that it's really not made for really tough adhesion to metal. So it works and it'll last a long time, but it'll scratch off of there pretty easily, so you want to be careful. Okay, that's all mounted. I want to see how this chassis fits in the radio now. Getting the chassis in was a simple matter of sliding it into the cabinet like so. I thought that I would need to put some rubber washers down in these little wells here, but the truth is there is literally no room to raise this up off the floor here. This thing sits a little bit on the high side just the way it's made. And you see where those shafts are coming out out of the knob holes. They're just about right. When I tighten this down against the wood, these are going to come down just a tiny bit, but they're about centered. I put rubber feet in, it's going to raise these too high. And you can see from the witness marks here that this chassis was never off center. So I don't think that that's going to be the right way to approach it. But take a look at that dial, man. Does that look nice or what? It's a nice looking radio. I'm getting very eager to get this thing going. The knobs for this radio are really kind of cool, but they're unique. I've never seen just this style before. The band switch knob is this star knob right here. The rest of these knobs are all similar, and I maybe could find something kind of like them, but I don't see why I would want to do that when these things are in decent shape. They're just really dirty, and the lacquer is all worn off of them, and the color is kind of gone icky on them, but I think I can take care of that, and here's what I'm doing. I'm cleaning these knobs with a little bit of lacquer thinner and a toothbrush. Now, will the lacquer thinner remove maybe a little bit of the color and the finish? Yeah, it will. In fact, it'll take all the lacquer off that these knobs might have been sprayed with, but that's okay because it'll also help get them clean without removing all of the patina and the age. You see, it's leaving some behind. And that's what I want. I want to leave some behind because I don't want to put new knobs on this radio. This radio will look better, especially since we're not restoring the cabinet, will look better if the knobs are not new. So I'm going to let this dry, and then what I'll do is I'll go out in my shop and I will touch these knobs with a little bit of toner. I'll just touch it with Perfect Brown. When that dries, then I'll hit it with some lacquer, some low sheen lacquer, probably a 40, number 40, something like that, 40 sheen. And I'll put a couple coats of lacquer on it and it'll be good as gold. Now this one here is splitting right there. The truth of the matter is I'm not going to be able to do much with this wood on this part. The good thing is that it has this brass insert, and that screw actually goes through the brass insert, and that's threaded. So that's going to provide the strength. As long as this knob will stay on the insert, I'll be okay. But I'll hit it with some color. And so let's do one of these real quick. I'll show you what I'm doing. A little bit of lacquer thinner, and you just clean it. What that does is actually brings the color kind of back to life a little bit. And you don't want to get too excited about it. You just try to get the surface dirt off of it. You remember, we're trying to leave some patina here. We don't want to make this a perfectly new knob. If we wanted perfectly new, we just go on a website somewhere and buy some new knobs. But these are unique. They'll look really nice when they're all done. And there's no need to make them new. You just don't want them to look gross. You want them to look clean, but old. Alright, and occasionally you go in and wipe them off. You see what that does is it kind of dresses the color up some. That'll dry and that color will kind of fade a little bit as it dries, but the lacquer will bring that back out. We'll let those dry and I'll shoot it with a little bit of toner once they're nice and dry, and then we'll finish it up. Alright guys, let me show you what I'm going to spray these with. I bought this at Sherwin-Williams a couple of years ago. They were selling out of all of their spray can toners, and so I bought as much as I could fit in my car. So I still have a bunch of it left. This is Universal Walnut. I'll try this first. I could use Perfect Brown, but I think I'm going to like this walnut. So we'll give it a shot. Alright, let's just touch it. The idea is not to darken these. Now, pardon the video quality, but the truth is, I don't want to get this stuff on my camera. So I have the camera backed away a little bit and have it zoomed in. Let's do one at a time. I don't want to over darken any one of them. So I just touch each one with one or two quick little passes. This one here either is not an original knob or somebody refinished it with a red, like a red mahogany or red oak, because it's not quite the right color. Alright, now really that is plenty. Let me clear the guns. Okay. Now when this dries, and it won't take very long, pardon my headshot there, when this dries it won't take very long, then I'll shoot it with some lacquer, some clear lacquer. What I'm going to shoot it with is this stuff right here, this tin sheen that's very, very dull. It's not glossy at all. If this isn't glossy enough, well, it's easier to add a shot of gloss after that. Usually you want to go the other way. You shoot glossy and then you shoot this after. But I don't want to put a lot of lacquer on this. So I'm going to give this just this stuff a shot and see how I come out. I think this is going to be fine. I don't want shine on these knobs, but I do want them protected. Alright, let me shoot them with the first coat of this lacquer. Real light coat. Okay, let's shoot the third and final coat of lacquer on these buggers. each successive coat is just a little bit heavier, and it will dry flat. There. Now, I will let that be. That should dry flat. It looks awfully shiny now, but it'll dry nice and flat. Okay, there are those knobs. They don't look too bad, actually, considering how rough they were to start with. They look pretty good. They're still drying a little bit, but I think they're going to work out okay. Sometimes it's just good to admit defeat. Knowing when to admit defeat, well, that's the trick, isn't it? You don't want to do it too soon, or you look like you don't care, or you're lazy. But if you wait too long, you just look stubborn. So I tried to do something in between this time around. Let me explain. This dial has these slits cut in it, a la Philco, and a little arrow-shaped hole cut in this fine-tuning disc that's on here. And they're supposed to turn when you turn the tuning knob. They turn with the tuning condenser. The trouble is, this radio originally used 3.5 volt bulbs. That's a 3.5 volt, I think 1.15 amp. Anyway, it's a bayonet mount bulb. Anyway, those bulbs are not available at all anywhere. I've not found them on Bob's Antique Radios. I've not found them on Radio Days, nowhere. So I'm sort of screwed because what I put in there were some 6.5 volt bulbs. I have some, I think 2.2 volt, but they'll burn out in a hurry if I use those because the voltage is right at these sockets. So I put some 6.3 volt bulbs in there, and they're kind of dim. They do light up the dial numbers nicely. That's okay. They do a nice job there, but they don't really light up the backside enough for the light to come through these slits bright enough to really be useful as a tuning indicator. So what to do? Like I said, at some point one has to admit defeat. So I painted some white enamel lines around the slits and around the arrow-shaped opening so that you could see this thing in the bright light. In a really dark room, you can see them, but then that's not all that useful. Not too many people are watching looking at a radio in a really dark room. So let me plug it in and show you. I've got the rectifier tube out of it, but I'll show you the lights. See, there we go. And if I turn off these lights, you really can't see the red marks. Now I could get really creative and turn off all the light. Now by turning off all the light, you can kind of see the red right there. If you look real close, let me zoom in a little bit for you so we can get past that light there. See if you can see that. See that red? Barely, right? Barely see it. And it fades pretty quickly as I go around the dial. But you can still see, even in the dark, fairly dark, you can see the white lines I painted because they're fairly reflective against these two lamps. And it looks pretty darn good. So I think this is going to be a good solution for this problem. I spent literally half a day trying to figure this out. See, on this side, there's a lamp behind this plate right over here, and there's a lamp behind the plate right over here. So when the indicator slits are real close to the lamps, you can kind of see through them. But watch, as soon as you get away from the lamps, they fade pretty quickly. But that's actually okay, because by the time I get there, this fairly reflective white is between these two lamps up here, and the light kind of does a fiber optic thing down through the glass and actually shines on these indicators, so they're pretty visible. So I think this is going to work. It's not perfect, But it's not a bad solution. I think the owner of this radio is going to like it because it's real important that he be able to see this radio as he tunes it. So one by one, I'm knocking out all the little problems for this. I should have this thing ready here within the next couple of days. This is a new old stock 6U5 tube. And these things are beautiful when they're working right. Watch this thing, it's really pretty cool. But the problem is they're getting real expensive because they're getting more and more rare. I think I paid about $70 for this plus shipping from Tube Depot. And that's about what you can expect to pay for a good tube like this. I will warn you not to buy a used one or one that's been, and don't grab one that's been sitting in a radio forever. These things are almost always dead. I don't even bother with used tubes on these. I always get new old stock. The only time I'll even consider used is if I buy a good bright used one from a place like Tube Depot. They'll have tested it.
Jesus, he wants to reconcile us with our Father. A relationship.
This is Truth, AM 820, KUTR.
The 1-0. And that's downstairs.
Ballistic missile launch this year. The missile traveled for less than 300 miles before dropping into the Sea of Japan. The latest before today's launch was just a week ago. President Trump has been briefed on the development. It would be catastrophic. Mattis said it would probably be the worst kind of lifetime. He says North Korea poses a threat to several areas with its arsenal.
All right, guys, check it out. It's all put together. It's all working just fine. Sounds really good.
Dell PCs with Intel Core processors and gorgeous Samsung
There's the
TVs.
tone control.
You can get a Google Home and Nest bundle.
Oops, power switch is on the tone control.
Big Memorial Day deals by visiting Dell.com/Memorial Day. Gossip? If you yawn all day, your mattress may be to blame.
When I look at you.
There we go. Let's take a look at the dial light without the camera lights going. It looks good, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm kind of liking it. Tuning eye is working great.
Probably one of the most talked about people in my house. As a kid who liked politics, just loved the whole JFK experience.
It sounds weird, almost like it's distorted, but it's not.
Parties relocated.
All right, guys. Let me take the camera off the tripod and show you the back of it. Now, he did not ask me to restore the cabinet. Well, I'm going to go over it with some Howard's Restore, but I'm going to do that tomorrow. I don't have time to do it today, but I want to get this video up tonight. So let me show you what I did with the back of it. Alright, here's what I did with the back of it. Like I said, I was a little worried about somebody touching that high voltage in there, so I put this cover on. It's got plenty of ventilation, as you can see. And it's going to work just fine. Check out the tubes and the lights in there. There's still quite the light show inside this radio. Pretty cool. Alright guys, well I guess that about wraps up this project. That's it for this 1937 Westinghouse model WR-212. On a Monday night, Memorial Day, coming from your Western Outpost in Salt Lake City, listen to a little KSOP on AM 1370. This is Michael, and that's all for now.